Je Chuan La Chan Ju Ba Du Dan Ni Je So Je Da Gui Ji Jin Ji Chuan Nan Je Ra La Du Wa Jo San Je Che Dong Su Je Chuan La Chan Ju Ba Du Dan Ni Je So Je Da Ge Chen Nin Di Ve So Jo La Pen Je San Je Du Wa Jo San Je Che Dong Su Ge Chuan Nam La Chan Ju Dane Kapso Che Dage Chenyen Jive Sonam Jola Penche Sanje Juvara Sho Sabang la Mimi Damian Ji Ombodang Jajin la Soci Jala Chava Javana Sanje Sumbara Sishin Divi Juru Juvati Taji Chitame Tenye Dinin Divish Te Jajin Yende Rinje Sayu Di Juvati Jivata La Chodo Tejun Kuwa Yudi Shebin Jasin Jasin Ambitani le Wadala Tuve Sunyan Ji Namala Yigatan Lutan Jinga Rubota Dangunum Toa Gunji Dana Chisan Batam Jagado Dagi Chedendo Sia Oyada Anita Karsori Loben Pabalagi Anituma Jaso Dilata Namba Kundu Yemedi Puji Chini Chimala Ali Kaso Jiba Namba Kundu Jim Juru Cheni Osuma Nashi Cheni Dungaji Jaso Dila Taiwa Mare Seta Yuwa Mares Dungaji Jaso Seti Dungadi Maranzu Ta Lenyu Xiawan de Jibi Pumbo Chawan de Jiki Dungadila Asiguare Dungaji Jaso Dila Nin Namba Kundu Taiwa Mede Puji Chini Chingwale Ta Dungajin Jaso La Ani Puji Chingwale Jiba Jine Jim Juru Sikane Jiba Mijewade Ta Kase Jegogri Jiba Jim Juade Be Ta Kasore Jiba Jim Jegawala Majewade Yachamori Sumada Jiba Jim Juru.
Taking a quotation from the writings of Arideva, who states saying that the suffering of the ocean of suffering of samsaric existence is without limit, with sort of inexhaustible kind of limit. And so referring to our suffering of the pervasive conditioning, and upon seeing this, you the child, how is it that you do not feel your samsaric existence? When one sees how limitless, how immeasurable are the sufferings of our samsaric existence, it is something to be fearful about. But and then Arideva puts this question saying that it's amazing that you're not. It's a wonder that you do not fear this existence.
Lindoki Miktimne Ani Dungalan Devati Chilo Tai Ani Dungajaso Dilata Nabakun to Yemete Chenima Lunduma Tana Guare Kare Sana Mariki Mendoki Ani Maribim Lindoki Miktim Segana Ani Dinzingi Tembatsimbaki Ani Kasore Chenaji Nelu Tadu the Tonga Miktimne Chenamji Nelu Tadu de Kasang Haninganzo Shuanashi Chani Anikaso Semjirashi Yesawa Namba Taba Tombani Gangalan Rashi Tombina Yuare de Nelu Tegil Tongala Miktim Telechiji Lodu Ani Demba Zimbi Dinzin Ti Tane Ani Kasole Chinjilo Yungalan Devati Chinjilo Jevesi Kasan Kondo Shabaki Tata Chinjilo Bashi with the Maki Tegi Lesane that Pumbati Truba in that Pumbati Truba in Zam.
So taking a similar quotation from Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamin Chobo, within which Lama Tsongkhapa states saying that by being obscured by the cataracts of the ignorance, then we we have all these erroneous ways of grasping at something that which is in fact suffering as happiness. So because of this, the cataract of ignorance referring to the ignorance grasping at true existence, then not being able to see or totally obscured with regards to the ultimate nature of things, the final mode, the ultimate nature of things, the final mode of existence, of phenomena, with regards to that, being completely obscured, not realizing the luminous nature of the mind, how phenomena does not exist by way of its own nature, and obscured in this respect, then we have all of these erroneous ways or mistaken ways of holding on to what is suffering as happiness, the mistaken modes of grasping grasping at true existence, like like the four mistakes of earlier holding on to suffering as happiness, something that which is impermanent as permanent. Those four types of mistakes, errors that we commit ourselves to due to being obscured in this kind of manner. And so as a result of that, then we accumulate all the karma, which in turn brings forth the result of the suffering aggregates.
Anita, Tendra, Anidunga, Yaso Seg, Menjusaki, Anisachan Yeli Pumbom, Chawanduchi, Dumandi, Pumba di Len Chinchella, Pumba di Len Chinchella. 아니 랑시지 대화 짜니 매봐 동아지 동아면도 랑시지 대화 동아 칠제발에 대화 뭐좀 여와를 마도 랑시지 대화 짠 짜와니 매봐 아니 동아지 랑시는 맞대봐
So this ocean of suffering, then refers to our own contaminated appropriate aggregates. This is referring to the suffering of our pervasive conditioning, the taking on of such an aggregate which has no occasion to experience any kind of true happiness other than existing in the nature of suffering. Whatever we hold or whatever we behold as happiness is just a mere change of suffering. A mere holding on to, we interpret what is a mere change of suffering as being happiness.
왜냐, 엄마 주비 동아 세가나, 풍부 대엄마 주비 동아 세가나, 담미 풍부 딜렘 받을 때네, 아니 미 제가 나치 동아 풍부 딜레 용해, 냐와 차장기 동아디, 냐와 풍부 딜렘 받을 용해. tenasi tenro ki dunga yang tenro ki phumbo de ba khamsong khang du jie jang zhuwa rang rang ki dunga khang chungwa de phumbo de len ba la de na chungwa yin chang phumbo de la ngomba drubi dunga sikwa de wa.
So these aggregates are regarded as the manifest form of suffering, because when we why do we call these aggregates a manifest form of suffering? Because when we have the manifest form of these aggregates, then we go through the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. When we have the manifest aggregate of a being born in the hell, then we have the experiences of the sufferings of the hells, hot hells, cold hells. When we have the manifest form of the suffering of the aggregates of an animal, then we have all the sufferings of the animal, of being born as an animal. And likewise, when we have the aggregates of being born, the manifest suffering aggregates of a being born in the form or the formless realms, then we have the sufferings in relation to those realms of existence. So it is through taking on these kind of aggregates that we say we have this manifest form of suffering.
저와 강도 제장 동아 용제기 때인데 아니 렌유지 왕의 풍부티 깨와지 풍부티 렌이 깨와량바디 인상 아니 루두기 코와 텐다 라이베 한미당 녀와이다 전도 가서 코와 텐다 녀와이다 전도 남지 깨와 상보 말라 깨와니 내버투면 니주라 견제 시간에 어다 풍부티 렌 취제라 아니 동아제랑신 레벨 마대바리당 사담미 냐와이다 전도 간듯이 깨나양 땡딜레발라 동아용제기 아니 내바양진 내번 죽사기 시지 연바데 아니 시와치고 그래 전에 중국이 안 말해 코아텐다 라벨 합니다 냐와이다 전도 삼아이 깨와 상보를 말라 깨와니 내바투면 내주라진제 아니 두시 야워 대지 상보를 담아놔 이 말해
So, as transmigratory beings, when we are born in any of these three realms of existence, then those aggregates are the basis of all the sufferings of those realms of existence. These aggregates that are brought on, induced by afflictions and action karma. And so Nagarjuna also in his letter to a king then states saying that regardless of where we are born, as in the higher rebirths as devas, human beings, or asuras, or if being born in the lower realms of the hell, hungry ghosts, and the animal realms of rebirth, then because we are never free from the suffering nature, because of these aggregates, then we are not free from the suffering nature of existence, and that these very aggregates serves as the basis for the experience of all of the suffering. The aggregates the aggregates of these respective realms of existence become the basis or the foundation for experiencing all the harm, it's like the entry for all of the sufferings.
Oh yeah. That you want to be like Baba said, remember, Hasso Tetan company. Given to be led to Pepper says, Mugumba Jabo de Sony. That Mugumba jetted on Travi, and the Tanjo with Dasa Disease, be Tutela. Anita Kovijawa the Tobacco, Jagore, Sigan, Tetan Train, companion, and given to be led to Pepper says, so on I see Chenny, Tangaranzo, Lenu Gijawa the top court, in the body.
And for this reason, to diligently persevere in bringing a cessation, a stop to this kind of birth, by recognizing these 8 states in which one lacks the freedom. And while one has the opportunity of a perfect human rebirth, then what one should apply oneself towards is bringing forth the stopping of such birth.
Dikiji le come anedi quartiji penjigi le dokoe quartiji penjigi le dobala aneti kasore tukuna langwagi le dobatamji matona tikuna lang nyamo matona ani le gyena yang le dona yang le singati cha la sokuyare CBS 남가 대례신 판이 많이인데 현지 제바 세지로 세고래 도나야 야래 남산사 소고리 인간 레게 자와 님몬도 거에
So in order to bring a stop to such kind of birth, then one has to stop the karma that propels us into such kind of birth, in all the propelling karmas into samsaric rebirth, then that has to be stopped. In order to stop the karma that propels us into such birth, then we have to stop the conditions that give rise to that karma, which are the afflictions, our roots of our delusions, our roots of our afflictions, is what what are the causes and conditions for generating the karma. So therefore, it is not sufficient stopping the karma alone, because while one has the cooperative conditions of the afflictions, then even though one karma is stopped, then you have the afflictions, the cooperative conditions of the afflictions that are constantly, newly accumulating more and more karma.
아니 티구나란데 니모 차다모서 제와 연장 니근제 자와니 태양 직접 따라지 전에 직달을 때는 직단도 거봐 직달이 도부디 잠바 직단 도지기 님보라 아니 가서 직디 유시 마춤바라 직다 도메요마 직디 유 가래래 직다 세딩을 가래서래서나 다 란주징아 마라 신지 주밤 마라완도 주바징해 마라완도 준비 준비되기 현시 마셔나 마라완도 준비 준비돼 또 맞아봐 리스유 매반이 대범만이 내봐히 선수한 하신 남들 가수
So what are the roots of our afflictions? The roots of our affliction is the ignorance grasping at true existence. So it is this ignorance grasping at true existence that generates all of our afflictions of aversion, attachment, and ignorance. So particularly referring to the view of the transitory collection. In order to get rid of this view of the transitory collection, then one has to employ the antidote through which one is able to destroy the object of this view of transitory collection. So what is this view of the transitory collection is our view of grasping onto the I or the self as being existent by way of its own nature, independently existent. In order to get rid of such a mode of grasping at an I, which is independently existent by way of its own nature, then one has to get rid of the object, object of this mode of grasping. When one gets rid of the object of this mode of grasping of the view of the transitory collection, then one can also get rid of that mode of grasping this mode of grasping of this view of the transitory collection.
아니 semran 신지 메바 도디 간다 semjeran 신 여사와 세데 다 도와 임바리
So when one is able to destroy the determined object of the object of this grasping at true existence, then one realizes this the selflessness of a person, and in this way then one comes to realize the empty nature of the mind and the clear light nature of that clear light nature of the mind.
텐라베 돈이도비 셰라데 탑지차 저와 인지 첨보당 다 공도셰바 감정적이 매화당 치티진 셰라메 매화당 아니 인지당 단이도비 셰라 림바 신도 콤디 다 감림바 신도 장장데 아니 소지산에 사주림바 좀 접데 아니 가소리 도자 산제지 공부 중에 틀리 말에 와
So it is through employing perfect forms of logic that one can establish selflessness. Through employing perfect forms of logic, and then and through meditation, bringing forth the clarity of that selflessness, and and eventually bring forth that kind of wisdom which realizes emptiness. And this wisdom supported by the method of compassion. And so in this way, then one purifies the basic element by relying on the antidote of the devotion to the Maya Dharma, the compassion, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. By meditating on these in gradual progression, then one can eventually come to purify the basic element from the stage of being an ordinary being, purifying it gradually so that one can progress through that purification all the way through the 10 bhumis and eventually attain the state of Buddhahood.
Inayang ane ngaran juji tenzing gi ane rashi ji majubala rashi ji chua namba chua zimba yinzang chua zindi tela tene ane deja dang shedan la sowe chatan jewa yinzang chima lubuwa sati tenbar ngoyi nezu la rashi ji namba taba inayang tenzing gi rashi ji majubala rashi ji chua zin tela tene chatan jewa yinzang.
So the I, the self, and the mind, in its actual nature, in its actual reality, is that it is empty by nature. Because it is by nature empty, then it is naturally pure. Naturally pure because it does not exist by way of own nature, and therefore naturally pure. So even though this is the case, but because of our ignorant minds grasping at true existence, then we hold on to the I or the mind as being existent by way of its own nature. What in fact does not exist by way of its own nature, then our minds grasping at true existence then holds on to it as being truly existent or existent by way of its own nature. And because of this mode of grasping, then this mode of grasping becomes the basis for generating all the afflictions of aversion and clinging and so forth. And so because things are like this in this state, so we say all of our afflictions are adventitious.
이래와 수요코라 라시지 남바 타바라시 마주바다 셈 라시지 마주바 레데 덴징기 라시지 추와지니 라시지 추와당 제니 나와예와인장 어디 낭주 테지 마로 파도 수사와 만나와체 르르지 사와 만나와체 상호 동반이 돈이 또디 간라 라시지 추비 추와기 아니 파 추와데 까디 잠바 아니 삼코랑 그 뒤로 남바 타바데 뒤로 간제 여바 치지 말아 봐데 통뒤 잠바 아니 남바 타바이 말에 좋아
So as long as we are not able to see exactly how things exist, how things exist exactly is in the state of natural purity. How things exist exactly is in a state of natural purity. which is existing in a way in which it is empty by way of its own nature. So for as long as we do not have that insight to see things exactly the way in which it exists, the final nature of phenomena, as long as we are not able to see that, then we have this mode of grasping at what in fact is empty of existing by way of its own nature, is seen as existing by way of its own nature. So all of our appearances of the mind is sort of combined with this appearance of existence by way of its own nature. We have no clear vision of the final mode of existence. All of our appearances are combined with this appearance of phenomena existing by way of its own nature. So, but when one comes into that profound realization of emptiness, how things do not exist by way of its own nature, when existence by way of its own nature becomes is negated, then our mind gives rise to this unmistaken viewpoint of seeing the state of natural purity of a phenomena existing empty of its own nature.
Yeah, Shugu Nija Sumji subject la Ranju Jisumji Tishini Tomata Dobala Pacha Cheve, Tomata Java Yina said that Dinzin de Kisamiranji Tomatoma Pacha Cheva. Telan Dribana, Tedan Seni Sumbi Sanjaji Tishini Tomalan, Dribjan, Sanjaji Tishini Tichet Jogumare, Seta Titanda Kazan Shutarwa. Ti Juju do Dribje Mayin Bichiri. Dribja Ranju Tishini Ranju La Nevichiro, that is Tajupetela. Pena me Masavas, make Mesavas at the Tusaraguare. Me Taji Truji Larida Java Chigi, Ani Mikorang, Ani Rarik Leba Yinzang, Kuyudu Sutian, Saur Matomba, Sutianaba Mataba Maimba. Made the Rarudan Taji Gana, Ani Mishiti Susawa Tonga Yinzang, Ani Yutian, and Nabataba Imba. In the Do Tabasula Tabani, the Kankachi to Jagua Imba. Right.
So in the Tibetan commentaries, page 238, and in the translation commentaries, page 103. And Rinpoche just read from this part. In that case, it can. You may reply. In that case, it cannot be obscured. But it is one's own mind that hinders the seeing and understanding of one's own suchness, and in this way, it is known as the suchness with defilement. If that is obscured, then the seeing of the suchness within the continuum of the Buddha, which has similar characteristics, will also be obscured. However, the suchness of Buddha does not become suchness with defilement, because the obscuring phenomena are not within the continuum of the Buddha, while one's own obscured phenomenon, the suchness, exists within one's own continuum. So this is illustrated by the following example of, just like someone who has an eye infection, eyes with cataracts, then is not able to see a particular form clearly. But once the infection is healed or the cataracts removed, then that eye is able to see that particular form, perfectly.
That Zawadi, Kasore, Kasandi, the partition by Bari. Yanda Mendola to the Jatu Lubutimate, and your moment Jurus. That led on your more choose the dinning over to make it. The Imbayasonji, that on your more choose the dinning over to make it. Chitana and Goy may miss up on the Timanjuru, said it. That the Sugudedua. You just so good there.
So, Tibetan commentary 239, and now we are on page 105 of the Western commentary, the verse 63. The coming to.
Oh, yeah. That tell
verse 63. So, and the coming together of karma and affliction, which is likened to the water of mandala, will not produce this suchness with defilement, because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of birth. It will not be burned by the fires of death, illness, and old age.
In that dig, Karasumare is an Lenny Yuang called Jawa to check it later. Tikunani, Nimoni, Chi Jungo than Jawa Soji. 错记，什么的这位提醒你的呢？我把猪把马人的，提醒你的两年往个猪把马的，那马子的，俺那两年在那马兄弟，在那教育期就马狗不去的，或对马钱是吧？是吧？教育期就马狗去，吃我当拿我当，没东啊差不多这边没啥别讲，提醒你这把民族的，就不去就马狗不去。
So, the coming together of karma and affliction, which is likened to the water mandala, will not produce this suchness with defilement, because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of birth. So, because the suchness is not a product of our karma and delusions, so it is not subject to the phenomenon of birth. Phenomenon of birth. It will not be burned by the fires of death, illness, and old age, which are unceasing in their creation of great suffering, because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of destruction. So the two halves of the verse teach the lack of birth and destruction.
Yes, Father.
Tishini the deshe the tandak.
Leda nimon chusoji setira. Leda nimon ba segala kortewa tujeki leda. Ane lekuna longa nimon chi nimon ba chi jungo dan jawa soji. Ani chimata jevi tishini. So, the karma and delusions, the karma that arises out of our afflictions, which are the causes for our samsaric existence, is like the water mandala. Is likened to the water mandala, but these karma and afflictions are not the causes for the suchness with defilements, because suchness with this suchness is an uncompounded phenomenon. No. Oh, tishido chiwada nawada gayu meyang. Ani dunga chabo jebi misa bejang gayu me dunga chabo jebi misa bejang. Ani order tishini the super menjude jibu cheji ma go bechel. Jeju the travel tambari that tishini.
So likewise the fires of the death, the great fires of the death, illness, and old age is it does not affect it doesn't affect the suchness, because suchness is not subject to the phenomenon of destruction.
Oh, that is Chida Nadan Gawa in Mesumba Timid 대체 뒤다냐와 타마이 메숨치다 나와당 가이 메숨 림신도 대단다와 샤와차 자와 타가리 자와 디바라라 대주도 디샤샤기 자와지 마주게
So the root verse, this essential constituent, the basic element, is not produced by the water of contaminated afflictions, afflictive emotions, and it will also not be burned by the awful fires of death, sickness, and aging. Next one, the three fires of death, change in life, sickness, change in constituents, and aging, change in youth, are to be known as similar, respectively, with the three fire at the end of an eon, the fire of health and ordinary fire.
Oh yeah, that digi, zawatigi, jawati, deshu chini shani, nije shuji shini dela, nije shuji shini dela.
So the commentary to this particular verse is you skip a couple of pages. 242 in the Tibetan.
Oh yeah. 치와다 나와다 가요 메숨 림바 신도 내지 직된 타다 스바 차바탕. 야위리 치와다 가요 림바 신도 내지 직된 타다 스바 차바탕. 야위 리 스바 차바탕. 귀신 스바 치비 뒤디 매당 단야위 매당 귀신 스바 치비 매당 메숨데 타마이 메스 베숨 샤고아레 와 그단다 림바 치도 니지타다 스바체와 가예메 냐유리 스바체바 귀신 스바체위 뒤뒤 매당 냐유 매당 다 두수 타마위 메숨보다 자와 셰와 차디 스제가 나치 가가와다 치와다 메숨보데.
So in the English commentaries on page 109, the three fires of death, illness, and old age should be known respectively as being the fire at the end of time, burning all external worlds, and the fires of hell, burning the hell being's body, and the ordinary wood burning fire, destroying as they do one's body, one's health, and one's youth.
7회 매 리된 존바탕 나의 매기 내매바 존바탕 아니 가요미 랑조 탈라바바 존바.
So death destroys our body, sickness, destroys our health, and, old age destroys our youth.
그래서 다 되게 이 배수모단 자유 군산된지 삼바 아니 가서래 치와다 나와다 가와나 고른신도 진짜 숨단 자와 르바 차디 제지 truki 다기와 때문에 받쳐봐 제지 truki 다기와 다기 롱제자 제지 tru 수라 소비 제지 truki 다기와 때문에 받쳐봐당 아니 나와기 동안나 소녀와 쳐봐당 아니 동안나 소바 레니지 저우 도치 용스 멤버 쳐봐 가와키
So then the reason for these three examples are that our death destroys our aggregates the sensory sources of the person, and the illness is what brings on all the different types of sufferings, and old age aging is what brings forth the completion of the karma and delusions.
이람 다 되게 제와다 가와다 나와다 치마 치와 신도 아니 근데 하나 중이가 나는 중이 어디 아니 콜로코와 나신 자니 가서로 지수 풍부 중에 봐 Tisitela Manjun Liang Lady, Tele Leda Jevayang, Lomzo Toda Yumba, Koi Jungo Gamin, Vijanam de Koa Juruchani, that Rinjichuana, Sumba Nation, Gigi Chinechi, Chiwachi, Tutikana Yang, Javachi, the little bash with less and Gigi Koi Dunga, Sambi Dana, and you calling him something. Koi Dunga, Yujunji, the Tabatini, Logi, Tabi.
So through this understanding of birth, aging, sickness, and death, like how it is experienced in the wheel of life, the 12 links of dependent arising. Then, as stated within the Jewel Garden Ratnamanda, while we have the grasping towards the phenomenon of the aggregates, then we have the grasping towards the in relation to the self. And while one has the grasping of the self, then one has the accumulation of the karma, and independence upon that, then one has the experience of the birth, aging, sickness, and death, to kind of understand the constant circling of these 12 links, cycle of these 12 links, and through this understanding, then to generate within our mind the determination to definitely to get out of samsaric existence, through this understanding to work towards generating the mind of renunciation and the thought seeking the liberation.
That diggy, the angel didn't did to say, Casore. Yage, Mata Batang, Antala Mata Batang, and the top should be Namdaki, Wangi. Now we never sungina, so Juameva said, Shaycana, that never sungina, Tambo de la Juameva to share the budget team by that. Then you are some Java said thing, but.
So in presenting the unchanging and the unchanging of at the phase of the impure state, and at the phase of the unchanging at the phase of the impure and pure state, and unchanging at the phase of the completely pure state, then we have completed the explanations with regards to the impure state.
Tala Mata Benagas, I need some years, I'll let you remember Shava Tel Capsula. That time Java the Dotan by Java Shava. Tela Mata Batabatang, something society between my Mataba. Chanju Simbi, Papi Nergala, Nerga Mila, and it's Chasosola Tena Tabatan Batam, Chasosola Tene. Chanju Sembaki, Papi Nergala, Chasan Papi Nergala, and oh. Taba said, did you get that Tabatang? So you never some Matabache. So I want to think with the Chasosola Tene, Matabata Tabatamba Indi. Lenin you want to give us such a Tabatang. Ninja want to give us a Tembayam. Tembe? Lenin you want to give us because Lenin you want to give us such a Tabatang, Chansan Babala. Ninja want to give us a Tembe, Matabam. Tayang, Daniel won't get you are murdered. Matabishi to Daniel won't get you are married. You the more you want to Matashi to Joy and by your in Betem Matabam.
Explaining the unchangings as unchanging during its impure and pure state. So with unchanging with regards to the luminous nature of the mind, that there is no change in that in its phase of being impure and pure. So like in the case of the bodhisattvas, at the phase of being a bodhisattva, then purified purified of the, the imputed grasping at true existence, purified, and at the stage of being an ordinary sentient being, then not being purified of the seeds of the not being purified of the imputed grasping at true existence. And when the bodhisattvas take birth in samsara existence, they are purified of that birth in the context of taking birth under the control of afflictions and action karma, purified of that, and but unpurified of that birth which takes place for a bodhisattva through the force of compassion. So like that, showing those phases, like the unchanging during these kind of phases of being pure and impure. So that's
one.
So Rinpoche read through this commentary on page 110, like that.
Yes, sir.
The wise Arya Bodhisattvas are liberated from birth, death, and illness and old age created through the force of karma and afflictions, because distinguished by their great deeds, they have directly perceived the true nature of their basic element. Although they are freed from the misery of death and so forth, produced by karma and afflictions, they focus on sentient beings and devote themselves to taking birth in samsara in order to develop their compassion. So distinguishing what is a phase, what is the phase of being considered impure, and what is the phase of being considered impure, like that. Pure,
oh yeah,
pure.
Take it some day, Chani. That door temper tella. Only the guy must try. Teaching not on Gawa Ladrova, the Ranshi Chishin Nitote. Just upon a giant teach, one and ten.
I made a mistake with the reading. Rinpoche read to the link this on page 110. This begins in the pure and impure state. It is unchanging. Pure and impure does not indicate two separate states. It means that the bodhisattva state itself is pure or impure depending on particular aspects. It is purified of birth created through the force of karma and afflictions, and it is impure state because of displaying birth through the force of compassion.
You know, that's our day. That Jawakasula, London Chanju Semba, Chansen Papa, that's a tambo toba nessunde. London Chanju Semba, Papa, Lenny Jiwangi Jawata, Chuata, Nawata, Gawala, Trova, Yindi. Japan Jachin be Chapa to Chenes, Japan Jachin Bosiricana, Carres and Ada, Jodi, Satambo Tobdicana. Lasam tabi semje togu wari. Rawa semje de la dode jengi gasu shishagu duwa. Semje de ni sanamla. Medan lasam tabata. Namba member shindu de tishin driba pang wo sirikana. Dode jengi kana semje la mewa jipi semje. Lasam tabi semje. Namba member semje. Driba pang bi semje sirikana. Tishin kunzu semje de la. Sanzam rogi yana shishagu wari.
So, and then Rinpoche read through the root verse 65, Bodhisattva superiors who have been released from birth, the new establishment of mental and physical aggregates, death, the ceasing of continuum, aging, the change in the continuum, and sickness generating suffering, realize the nature of this essence of a one gone to bliss, just as it is. Therefore, such a bodhisattva is devoid of the misery of birth and so forth, and thus immutable or unchanging. So the Arya Bodhisattvas are free from the experiences of birth, aging, sickness, and death that are brought on by afflictions and disaction, karma. Because they have the realization, insight into the true nature. So, and bodhisattvas who are on that level, like the bodhisattvas of the first bhumi, have generated the bodhicitta mind, and at that level, then it is characterized by these four features. The conventional bodhicitta is characterized by these four features. So, the bodhicitta, which is the purity of aspiration, the bodhicitta, which is the purity of the extraordinary supreme thought, extraordinary supreme thought, and the bodhicitta, which is the bodhicitta, which is the complete ripening, and the bodhicitta, which is purified of all obscurations. Purified of obscurations.
That's all. Juba Gachambo said, that the Mewaji be some GC Gana, Chansam Cholam Dan Jolam Ginega Gisemjeti, and Mewaji be some GC Gala Tony, Tunji Taba Mado, Unsum to Taba Meba in Zang, and the music some GC. You know,
and the mind, the aspirational mind generation, generation on the path of accumulation and path of preparation. You know, the kind of the extensive noble conduct that arises for a bodhisattva on these paths. Their conduct is the expressions of that conduct comes from the aspirational mind generation, aspirational bodhicitta, because at this phase, then the particular bodhisattva has just the generic realization of emptiness.
Satambone Sunday, Satumbu Paji Semgetela, and let Hassam Tabi Semji is
and the bodhicitta from the first to the seventh bhumi is regarded as the bodhicitta of the completely completely pure, extraordinary supreme thought of responsibility.
Hassan Tabi Semji is that's a Tambo top to Gala. Turn them Semji set to go at it. Turn them Semji set.
So, when one generates this bodhicitta, which is the completely pure, supreme thought of responsibility, then one has generated the ultimate bodhicitta at this phase.
Turn them Semji is that one you mustn't be shared up.
So, ultimate bodhicitta is the direct realization of emptiness.
What ends up Zojang Nelula Ninan Nubik, so we Chanju Gitonila, Nilan Nubaki, Ani share of Chabar Janjila, Ani Takasole Tandam Sem Sigwari.
So, the ultimate bodhicitta is that wisdom, extraordinary wisdom, where all duality has subsided or set, like the setting of the sun, set in relation to full and complete enlightenment.
In the Satambo top said, Sa said, turned up a Sa, Sana, that Telesiguari. Don't you do be share up? Don't you want to do be share up there? And it has the Semji Simbi, Tapsi Cabra changes Simbi. And it Semji, Casa don't you want to be share a tambo, top the Gala Satambo toba yin, 10 years soon the 10 year toba Chua is. Or 10 years soon the Sigana turned up be Semji toba 10 years soon the. And Sanju should be Satambo toba Juare. Tella Anne, Chansen Papa Shibam. Turned up a Chanju Sambashi, Minjugri, Sigana, Chanju Sambashi, Rani, Gineto, to see.
So, when we talk about the first bhumi, the first ground, then at that first ground, then one has the wisdom realizing emptiness. This because this wisdom realizing emptiness is supported by the extraordinary method, so it is known as the ultimate bodhicitta, and the ultimate bodhicitta, and so the being is also known as the Arya Bodhisattva or the absolute Bodhisattva.
That is to Zamba, Tundam Bisemji Tobadang, Tunyamdu, Margi, Anita Kararesana, Chansam Jolam Biji Semjete, Hasanta Bisemji or Tokare, Hasanta Bisemji Toba Tunyare.
Tunyamres.
Tundam Semji Tobadang, Margi Jolam Gnaga Digi, Tonam Tobadang, Tundam Semji Toba, Hasanta Bisemji Toba, Tunyamba.
Jolambe, Hasanta
Jolam Del, Jolam Bagi, Tonam Todirwa, Tundam Semji Toba, Tundam Semji Toba, Hasanta Bisemji Toba, Tonam Toba, Tunyabare.
So the individual who is on the path of preparation, when upon attaining the path of seeing, then is that attainment of the path of seeing is simultaneous with attaining the ultimate bodhicitta, as well as the bodhicitta, which is the pure, extraordinary, supreme thought.
Tenda London Chanju Sempa Papa Lanyu Jiwango Quarter Jawadan, Chiwadan, Gawala, Noan, Gawala, Troa in this Japan Jachimbo, Laksam Bisemji, Dang Ninjela Soa. Or Japan Tenji Chaba to China, Sirikana, Simbalan to Gore, Chaba to China, Come the Ranshin Chitawa, Sirikana, Semjira, Simrashin, Simrashin Majuba. Then don't take it. Nanu Chitawa Chidong wasn't doing citizen, Tanam Samjere, Leongare, Ramaton. Takasode, don't you want to be Shile.
So the wise Arya Bodhisattva are liberated from birth, death, illness, and old age, created to the force of common afflictions, and distinguished by their great deeds. They have directly perceived the true nature of this basic element. The Tambudil Hansuma Gengi Jeshidil. The Chuba
Jachimbi said, Lasanta Bisimjeta, Ninjela, Sovi, Cheba to Chewa, Chene, Sena, Tedaki Simbi. Come the Ranshin Chidawachi Tovis and a come Sirigana, Semranshin Chitomba.
So, distinguished by the great deeds that arise out of the extraordinary supreme thought of that bodhicitta, great compassion, so forth, they directly perceive the true nature of this basic element, referring to realization of the empty nature of the mind.
There is a Jolam Toga Magi. Jolam get Tama Jolam Chenjoti. Jolam Chenjo de Dang, Ane Satan be Toma Toya, Tonam Niwote, Ludenchik, Denchik.
In the path of preparation, you have the phase at the state of supreme Dharma. The individual who is at that state of the supreme Dharma and attaining the first bhumi of the path of seeing is the continuum of the person is the same. It's the same basis of the person that has attained supreme Dharma and that attains the first bhumi of the path of seeing. It has to be the same base person.
That Tonambagi, Yugi Ludende, Lenny Pump Pumbo member check. lenye jwa ke phumbo men ba che ra ta de kan de sana yi ji lan sing lu yi sha ko are
but the physical base, the body of that individual who has attained the path of seeing, that body is not considered a body of as a product of afflictions and action karma, and you would have to say that it's a body which is in the, like a mental body.
다들 ngame lenyi phumbo de ane kharasi yiji ran sing lu la yuar chingen de kharere sana lasan da be semje dang chandab semje ke sembe lasan da be semje de wa
so the previous body the previous body which was brought on by afflictions and its action karma, what enabled this body to be transformed into a body which is in the nature of the mind, Yigi Renshin, in the mental body. What caused that transformation is that bodhicitta, that the extraordinary, pure, the extraordinary supreme thought, the purity of that bodhicitta, as well as the ultimate bodhicitta is what brought about that transformation.
四句之言，那么敲打过，没让女的拿来教育过，人家人那么把教育，强是什么些教话，那边送谁干了？送哪些钱呢？四句的再加上东四的教话，在哪些都，俺你谈到这个希望哪些工作的团队被强求给什么带呢？俺你俺们来你旁边碰不的，俺你有一两星期，既然你教话人家，So
that's why when in Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, then in explaining the benefits of bodhicitta, you have this particular verse which talks about how the conventional and ultimate bodhicitta is like this like the special alloy that is able to transform thousands of base metal into gold. This conventional and ultimate bodhicitta is what transforms, the base aggregates of the initial aggregates brought on by afflictions and action karma, into this, priceless jewel-like body.
Oh yeah,第二是其实你多的就是碰到这样是这的，你么着吧，对吧？对的，他真的的，那呢，这个朝外影响的是吧？这段就是碰到这样第一句是他真的的，他两年就往个接受叫我做个碰把当查我热的，后来叫我两个的是吧？主要的名片。中间东阿金闹了没把给，俺那年纪全部给长呢，俺那东阿金那边中间太大，给切都靠的接连一张，两年就往个接受碰把当这样，主了明年年纪几位切都靠的接我电比军山乐的，看见上行我什么都到把体育当，年纪轻比几少岁，俺那看见上行我什么都到把给写了七八简单，俺那他七八件年纪轻比。忘记，俺那夸的结完两把有啊的，
So the bodhisattvas, the bodhisattvas do not have birth brought on by afflictions and its action karma, but they do have birth in samsara, and that birth in samsara is brought about due to their compassion for the sufferings of sentient beings. So the reason or the cause for the birth in samsara is basically the wisdom realizing emptiness, the direct perception of the basic perception of the nature of the basic element, realization emptiness, and their great compassion is what is the cause or the reason for their birth in samsara.
Oh yeah. Yana lenye ji wang ge kwar jia mai jiang sem jian xian dong a ji tong sem jian xian ji yu dong a tong a ti li ani yu qian ne ani dong a la cha yue qi du ani lan nian chang ju san ba la ani dong a la zhan de ge ni jie jian ne ti qi ani kwar jia wa ya nian ge wa de sta zhan na ti ge
So the wise bodhisattvas do not have birth in samsara, do not have birth in samsara due to afflictions and action karma, but they do have birth in samsara because they see how sentient beings see the causes that bring forth sentient beings' birth in samsara, and seeing that, then with the wish to free them from that suffering and causes suffering, then is what causes them to be born in samsara.
Oh yeah, that thing don't temper the chim sane, right? That Java Shaba Tella, and Chua the Lenny Chegana, that Lenny was landed. Jiu Chabala Dene, Shebi, Matabata Tabi Negana Jua Meba. Sanje da soje la dene shebi mara para tabi du negani jua meba ni che.
And then for the detailed explanation, then unchanging during the pure and the impure states defined on the basis of the birth, and unchanging during the pure and impure state defined on the basis of being a Buddha or an ordinary sentient being.
Taji Chabala Dana Matabata Tabi Nega Jua Meba Tela Telayang Tabi Chabada Matabe Ransing Tamata Ju Chabadu Chene Shaba Chene Nidu that Tambutela Zawa the Drava Niche.
So this is on page 111, which says the immutability during the pure and impure states defined on the basis of birth is explained by first explaining the features of the pure state and how the nature of the impure state is characterized by the pure and impure causes.
Da tambo de la tabi kaba sheba de la zawa la pabe chidang gawa dang na yu dunga zane bang le dan ni mo wang ge de la kemi chide me. So
to explain the features of the pure state, then you have the root verse 66. Since superiors on the first bodhisattva ground directly realize the immutable basic element of a superior's qualities, they have exhaustively abandoned the suffering of death, sickness, and aging. For beings are born by the power of contaminated actions and afflictive emotions, and they do not have those whereby they do have the birth.
Chanju Semban, that Devala, and the Zawa to say Zawa Tiki Deva Kandisha Osana, Chanju Semba Pabe, Lenu Juangi Chiwata, Nawada, Gayutunga, Zene, Bangane. Tela koyu dunga te mede, lenyu ji wang ju koyu dunga sena, lenyu ji xiawang de ju pongpo de meare. Na ngara zu nyo na xin sa jian nyo wa le bi pongpo de.
So the bodhisattvas do not have the experience of the sufferings of samsara in the way of birth, aging, sickness, and death that are brought on by afflictions and its action karma.
因此，lenyu ji xiawang de ju 미다지 렌이지 샤왕 젠데 아니 도지기 동아기 텐도 남들의 손도와 도지기 동아 생각들아 간지지라 생각해서나 미다지 렌이지 샤왕 젠데 풍부데 가서 샤왕 젠데라 도지기 동아 생각이 말이야.
In Pramanavartika, it says that what is regarded as compounded suffering any suffering that is under the control of afflictions and its action karma, any suffering under control of afflictions and its action karma, then those are regarded as compounded forms of suffering. So for so for the Arya Bodhisattvas, then there is no such birth in samsara through afflictions and action karma. The Arya beings of the Hinayana vehicle, although they have the wisdom realizing emptiness, but because they lack the extraordinary methods of the extraordinary supreme thought of that the extraordinary supreme thought of bodhicitta and compassion, so they have birth brought on by affliction and karma.
Yaram Papa Lani won't get your lemba, you are race. That Tony Muslim to the dog you are ready. Tajin Chanson Papati, Tony Muslim to Towa down, Tap Chabajan, Hasanta Bisimjet and Inji Simbe, and Lani won't get your lemba, your Mari Larva. That under the Tony was a dog you are Tap Chabajan, Injeta, Hasam Jamasimba in Zang.
So in the case of the Bodhisattvas, you have both the direct realization of emptiness, and as well as in the support of the extraordinary method of the extraordinary supreme thought and great compassion, and so they do not have birth brought on by afflictions and action karma. In the case of the Arya practitioners of the Hinayana vehicle, they have the direct realization of emptiness, but because of the lack of the support of the extraordinary method, of the extraordinary supreme thought of bodhicitta, compassion, so for the Arya Hinayana practitioners, they have birth through brought on by affliction and action karma.
Something to super Lemba Shaba, Sansan Papa, something to quarter Lemba Shaba, Sipasana Quarava. Only one to Genji Dreva, one to be Genji Dreva said, Papa Troti Zebi, and Nitinawari. Undo Jin Dreva. The Gausu, only Maribata Tavetu, Palanya Pongi, the Bata Sibi Saban and Mayan to something to Java Lembi Chil, Jenny. 다 가서래 대바다 시비 사바기 마리바다 따외 뒤에 발라냐 뽕기 시리가라 마리바당 따와스나 따왕아 지솔라 따와라 소바기 따왕아 마리바다 지솔라 따외 뒤기 아니 발라냐 제다 뽕기래 아니 대바다 시비 사바 빵그 마리세는 송두가시 인다 대바다 시비 타바데 깨와는 비왕 대바다 시비 사비 왕기 대바당 수스케기 와레스니 시구아레데 깨림비치로시 대바당 시비 사바 깨와림이 주샤바당 가로시나 봐 대바다 시비 사바스나 대베 대자 봐 대베 대자들라 대베 대자당 아니 시비 되자서나 저바다 시비 사바서나 강공미 세디고 되자들라 시비 아니 세바시거래 시비 사 그봐 시비 사바시거래
with regards to the bodhisattvas, intentional birth in samsara, then with regards to that point, then there is this question that that is brought forth, and this is mentioned in the commentary to the ornament of clear realization. So it talks of abandoning those seeds of ignorance and the views, but not the contamination of the realm of desire and samsara. When the views, the 5 types of views and the contamination of the realm of desire is the ordinary desire. Contamination of realm of desire and contamination of realm of samsara is the attachment, of the desire realm, and the attachment of the form and formless realms are the contamination of the realm of samsara. Because these beings deliberately take birth in samsara. So just reading from, it may be wondered later on the commentary talks of deliberately taking birth in samsara, and the commentary to the ornament of clear realization talks of abandoning those seeds of ignorance and views, but not the contaminations of the realm of desire and samsara, because these beings deliberately take birth in samsara. So this is in relation to the Bodhisattva's intentional birth in samsara. That you have this question. Yes. So one is this contamination refers to the attachment of the desire realm, the attachment of the form and formless realm. Contamination of the realm of samsara is the desire of the form, the attachment of the form and the formless realms. So so when we talk about contamination of the realm of desire, which is basically the attachment that arises from what one desires, this refers specifically to the objects of our 5 senses, the attachment towards the object of the 5 senses that we desire. And when we talk about the contamination of the realm of samsara, it is the object of that attachment. In the case of the beings in the form and formless realm is the concentration. The object is the object of that desire's attachment is the concentration, because they are completely separated. They have separated away from the attachment to external objects of the 5 senses, but their attachment focuses on in the inner concentration, with their minds turned inward in concentration. So, their object of the attachment is within their own mental continuum. So with regards to the presentation of this question, whether this is a contradiction or not, then the answer is there is no contradiction to this.
인자 마리바다 따라뒤 바라냐 방그 되바다 시비 사바는 마인데 삼순의 개발림비 7시에 되는데 가르래서나 되는데 다른데 니몬제지 마리바 직다당 마리 니몬제지 마리바 직다 로다소 다 로다라서 따왕아 란데다 현대 주비 양라 강도양 녀 코아 매배 chanju 남기 체도 때문에 방화차와 인라 다 니모제지 말을 봐 직다체 말을 받아 직다 봐 니모제지 말을 받아 직다 니오 되라 말을 봐라 직다라 말을 봐 인바 파 인고아체 말을 봐라 직다 인고가 말해 봐 말을 봐라 직다 인고 직다라 말을 봐 인고래 뭐마 근데 그 룰라이나 직다라 말을 봐 이건 거야 차고야 말이야. 인간다 이 문제지 말을 봐 당 직다체 근데 타르다당 로다당 아니 두시 수tum도 두시 총쟁라 소와 그 따와 현바태도 란된다 현된 주비 양라 강도양 녀 자주 선바는 녀 먹고 와 인장 자주 선배 체도 니 애네 방화차 그래.
So why this is not a contradiction is because because afflicted ignorance and the view of the transitory collection, the extreme views. Like you have the 5 types of views, holding inferior views as superior, holding perverse forms of views or conduct as superior views. So you have this five types of views. That these that such as these 5 types of views then are not requirements. Are not required for engaging in the activities of benefiting self, or no requirements for the fulfillment of welfare of self or the welfare of others. So in that respect, then they are regarded as the complete objects to be abandoned by the bodhisattvas, because they do not fulfill any sort of benefit for the self and others. So, or the bodhisattvas focus in abandoning these types of views. So then Rinpoche sort of made a distinguishment saying "Nyomonchigi maripa yena jikta."
Nyomonchigi maripa tan jikta ni.
Maripa nyomonchigi maripa yena jikta
koko mares.
Jikta yinko mares. So if it's an afflicted ignorance, it doesn't have to be the view of the transitory collection, but if it is the view of the transitory collection, it has to be an afflicted afflicted ignorance. But in the compendium of learning, tanda ngomba kundu la kharsumba, ngomba kundu chiksunso.
ngomba kundu la maribala ani kasari dancing yung kuk maresi, right? Ilula maribala dancing yung kuk, dancing yung kuk.
In accordance to the system of the compendium of learning, then ignorance does not necessarily have to be a form of grasping at true existence. But in this system, if it is ignorance, it has to be a form. It has to be a grasping at true existence. In So, in relation to self or phenomena, then there has to be that kind of grasping at true existence. When we talk about the view of the view of the transitory collection,
Oh, yeah, that they know.
Then that is a grasping, focusing on the self.
인단 단주님 산주 생각이 머리 바당 다외 뒤와대 타다서 다외 뒤와대다 현진 주비 양라도 녀원 하고 봐이네 시도 때내 방기래.
So for the bodhisattvas, then these types of views, 5 types of views, like the view of trust, recollection, and so forth, since they are not required, since they are not requirements for fulfilling the welfare of others, then they concentrate on abandoning them. Although they concentrate on abandoning these 5 types of views, then it is not their principal object of abandonment. Their principal object of abandonment is obscuration to omniscience. So
사바다지 풍보를 세바 알아서 타마와라 아니 치포이 내가라 아니 다 체지도비 집에 풍보를 세비 세바 제요 지구와라 어다 다 체지도비 집에 사바다지 풍보를 세바 저장 장주 세바리 와 말이 자스바바다.
So I should read from the commentary. The contaminations of the realm of desire and samsara are not necessary causes for birth, because birth occurs through the force of compassion. And in the Arya Bodhisattvas, at the point of death, the thought, I will not exist, and the subsequent fear, which leads to a grasping of contaminated aggregates and so forth, is not there. In the case of our own ordinary death, death of an ordinary person, then we experience the grasping at the self, the view of the trust to recollection, the grasping at the self, and then so for the bodhisattvas, in that case, then they do not have these experiences.
yang sungam sumaram jiwa ge jiwa lang sim bi che sibi saba unju du ye jang ta ka sang jiwa na ji jani nga da men ji se bi tu da nyomo bi nyama mi je ba ino.
So why do the bodhisattvas not use these contaminations? These 2 types of contamination of the realm of desire and the contamination of the realm of samsara as their principal objects of abandonment. Why, like how they use how they focus on the 5 types of views, the way in which they concentrate on abandoning them, like that, why they do not focus in abandoning these contaminations of the realm of desire and realm of samsara, is because when they are born as a wheel-turning king, like a prince of the Mahayana lineage, when they take birth in samsara in this kind of manner through compassion, and when they are born in the form and the formless realms through the power of prayer, then these contaminations of the realm of desire and samsara are neutralized. Like how a poison is neutralized by mantra and medicine, then on the occasion of their birth, through compassion, or in the desire realm, through prayer in the form and the formless realms, then these contaminations are neutralized through prayer and mantra.
Oh yeah.
Through neutralized, like mantra and medicine.
Oh yeah, mijiba oche. Nyumongi tsani ane semji rabdo mashiwa cheba kis semju jira sigware. Rawa semji rabdo ma nyumombi tsani kandesana rangi chele dogola semji rabdo mashiwa cheba ki ane chele chenji semju jira nyumon sigware mbare.
So what is defined as an affliction? What is defined as an affliction is a secondary mental factor which causes our mental continuum to become unsubdued, disturbed. That is defined as an affliction.
Semji rabdu shiwa ni semji nimo rabdu shiwa la shidi zamba ane nyangde toba yinzang nyangale dewa jola.
So when one attains the pacification of this kind of continuum, then that is equivalent to attaining liberation.
Ti dojo semji rabdu mashiba ani nyomongi ji lenyu ji xiawang jianji ani dunga tembare lenyu xiawang ji phungpo de dunga temba.
So a non-pacified mental continuum is under the control. A non-pacified mental continuum is under the control of afflictions and its action karma, and therefore it is a state of true suffering.
Lenyu ge xiawang jianji dunga temba de cheba bodo karere sana jidang nimo re si. Nimo la tengene le ge wangi ani le ge xiawang ando anchu phungpo de chuba yinyang nimo yinyang si. 다 자주 선비 투지라 예비 니모와라 니모라 니모가 다 주바 예장 다시도 매 쓰고래. 라.
So because of the afflictions and its action karma, then because being under the control of afflictions and action karma, then one is said to be experiencing true suffering. So, because afflictions give rise to the karma, and karma in turn gives rise to these suffering aggregates. But the afflictions, in the case of the bodhisattvas, although they may be called afflictions, but they do not fulfill the criteria of being. They do not fulfill the criteria of affliction.
일단 자주선비지라 녀몽가 다 줘봐 여대 여대 가르사나 자주선비지라 녀몽 천이 바데 아래사 담보네 개바 모두 봐도 요아래. 와. 다 줘봐 그 녀몽 천이 바인자 녀몽가 다 줘봐래스. 다 녀몽가 샤바다진 라샤도 메바데 가르사나 라샤데 가르사 녀몽 치기 녀몽긴 라샤데 라샤데 가르사나 녀몽디게 랑지 지심기 마룽아 쳇바데 녀몽기 라샤바레 녀몽기 라샤레 인자 랑지 그 심기 마룽아 쳇바데 차주선바다 메바 인장 아니 녀몽기 라샤도 주바 여장 라샤바요 말레스.
So we do say the bodhisattvas have delusions because bodhisattvas from the first to the eighth bhumi do have delusions in the context of what are characterized as delusions that they have. But what they do not have is is the way in which delusions function. When earlier we talked about what is the definition of an affliction, what is the definition of a delusion, is that which makes our mental continuum disturbed, unsubdued. But so the bodhisattvas from this first to the eighth bhumi, they have delusions, they have afflictions, as afflictions are characterized, but they do not have afflictions in the way in which it causes their mental continuum to become unsubdued, disturbed. And so therefore we say that although it is called afflictions, the bodhisattva's afflictions are just called afflictions, but they do not fulfill the criteria of being an affliction.
되게 된다 자와디 체 로알 자와디 체 다디 드와디 인사레 삼세 다디 온 타비 체바 샤바 세데라 산디니 유비나네 드와디 마타 다디기 되지들라
This is explaining what are the features of being pure.
지신야다 통외지 제소 남라 대주장 인지 단위 제와다 치단 가다 나왔던 세팅 대인범만도 와제
So the verse which you just read, verse 67, though due to seeing reality as it is, they have transcended birth and so forth, having a nature of compassion, they display birth, death, aging, and sickness, thereby ripening sentient beings.
가서래 최순부대 가래에서나 녀lem바니 탐보 된대하나 중요기 좀 말이 바로와 lem바 챵바 추신 많이 바이라 챵바당 이 말이 바되고 끝나라는데 아니 감숨 제와 편적을 가슴 가루 제와 편적을 내체 레테기 남인지 대부 아니 누가 두룽기 누가 투전도 제야 돼 여자 그 세바그 지게 와 인장 대자라 소유녀 뭐가 온도 좋아 젠지 니더니 인점 좋아 누가 투전도 주대 아니 깨내서 인점 줘디가나 아니 민수부 소유부부도 수지부부도 시부부도 시부부 나바시 부부가 줘야 인자 민수도 기위 깨와 인데 그만 규데 매바 가와 소매바 규덴지 덴지 자원에 방하다 요 말이지 규데 매베 딘디디기 레뉴기 겨와레기 누가 간가 좀바 인장 규데 매바 가와라서 매바 덤바니
So to read through the commentary on page 113, which says the previous teaching on the causes of old age and so forth explained the substantial causes of the three phenomena being phenomena during the impure stage, which are the incorrect mental engagement, that is the apprehension of true existence, karma, and afflictions of desire. Any linking to a future life with these three preceding becomes birth, as summarized by name and form. To just explain, saying that how due to this incorrect mental engagement, basically referring to the grasping at true existence, then you have the accumulation of the karma that is the cause for being reborn in any of the three given realms of existence. And then when one is when one is born, then you first have the name, the link of the name and the form. yugi tsawa de nuba chiksum sonte.
마다비 최순무시한테 담보 녀안에 막 담보 가려서는 인증 말을 받체 대기왕기 내사 내디왕기 아니 대자 내들의 소대가 그 세바 대자라 소위 녀마마 온도 전에 되네 아니 인잠 저기 마영아도 인잠 자네 민수지 풍부 제와인데 남좀 담아와서 제와 어떤데 제와 제비 두 아니 인증 하나 돈이 나한테는 집이 그 내진데 매배 아니 깨와다 가와라서 와 매바지.
So the experience of our grasping at true existence with the karma, the accumulation of karma, and this being brought into maturation through craving, grasping, and then you have the link of the name and form. If you don't have the causes for this, if you don't have the primary cause of the grasping at true existence, then all of this would not occur, would not happen.
인자 오기 자와 고라시는 야사리 탑자 준비 캐바도 전에 다중 캐바도 전에서 탑자 준비 신비해 안 감시리가나 심지라신 여사와 대동 또 심지 기타와 신도 양다방 우승도 통위 7 래니지 왕기 계속나라 대발 교장 아니 된다 몰랑가 왕기 이제다 몰랑가 왕기 치와다 가와도 맞대 세대라 지신 양다 통위 계속나라 대교장 이제 당이 계와다 치단 가다 나왔던 스타디 말에
and 카디카도 again 카디카도 숨래
나
당보
대수나 대사리와 니와 탑자 준비 캐바도 전에 감치다와 신 탑자 준비 캐바를 전에서가나 사상답이 심제다 인지 침부 심비 감치다와 신의 감서나 심제라시 여사와 심기 동반이 심기 친이 치다와 신 양다와 웃음도 또 통화 인장 뒤 군자지 아니 래니지 왕기 계속 나라 대화래
so
래니 계속 가버래
so like in the root verse was having a nature of compassion and with supported by the extraordinary methods of compassion, then when one realizes the suchness, the clear-light nature of the mind, the empty nature of the mind, the dhammadhatu of the mind, that emptiness, then all birth, aging, sickness, and death under the control of afflictions and action karma is stopped.
오히려 래니 그 왕기 계속 나라 대장 다 코아를 몰람다 니지다니 그 깨와당 치와당 가와당 나왔던 바자바.
So even though birth in samsara, birth, aging, sickness, death in samsara, brought on by afflictions and action karma has ceased, but there is birth in samsara through the power of compassion and prayer.
Oh yeah, that is. 강바 담배 치마다 바당 타바다 드위 두당 세가 래니지 왕기 지와마냐 인지 지와 땡지 만 래니 왕기 지와마 바티데 치치마기 마다비 신두이 모람다 왕기 지와 지바이나 마다비랑 신땡세 데임바리
So so in this way distinguishing pure and impure, pure because you no longer have a birth brought on by afflictions and action karma, pure in that respect, impure with respect to the fact that you still have a birth brought on by compassion and prayer. And Then the brief explanation.
You are Zawatan Teta Kutunshaba said it. Teta Kutunshaba.
In explaining the explaining the meaning of the root.
다 창조 삼바 코르 제디 삼바 제바 제디 삼바 내가 니모 안 기와 많이 받체 나 몰람다 개회 잡게 돌아 때문에 개와 인상 니제다 몰람 거만 개와 인상 다 개와 코르 제지 주대라 로드 자지시 도이가스 개와 렌지 주신 개네 송아데 다 당 개네 마송고 메로상도
So in the case of the bodhisattvas who do not have birth in samsara under the control of afflictions and sakshya karma, but have birth in samsara through compassion and prayer. So then here in the section there are these eight causes that 8 distinct causes that cause a bodhisattva to take birth in samsara.
얘다 자주 선반남네 개위자와 년제다 모름 개와 감심도 군도 좋아지잖으나 감심도 개와 좋아지는데 삼신도写서 대니 마다비랑신 때라서 마다비신도 디윈교대 가래서나 래녀지와 개와 맨나양 단담 대변 뒤에 감디니 제소 시간다 So here in the commentary, the bodhisattvas with their root virtue of compassion and the force of prayer connect everywhere to the 3 realms deliberately and with control over birth. These lines teach the unpurified nature. However, the phenomena of birth, etc., created by relevant causes, karma and affliction, are not there because they have truly seen exactly as it is, the basic element as not born and not appearing. So we stop here for.
Nanda Shinga Cheba Idang Guru Rana Mendra Lakani